So, even though it says over here on the Sikha that it's for Dvarim, it's also connected with Shabbos Chazon. This Shabbos is the Shabbos where we read the Haftarah of Chazon Yeshayahu about that the Rebbe always emphasized what Rebbe Levitzchak Berditchver said concerning the vision of the Beis HaMikdash and the specialness of being in the middle of the Shabbos, in the middle of the 3 weeks. So the Rebbe is going to bring that in, even though he's going to talk about the parsha, but he's also going to connect it with the idea of the 3 weeks and 9 days also. HaGemara Meresh is Sefer Dvarim Amar Moshe Rabbeinu Mepi Atzmai. So right away we know Chamisha Chumshei Torah is all, and the whole Tanakh is all from Hashem. So what's it mean Mepi Atzmai? So even though the Gemara says Mepi Atzmai, Oimre Makah HaToysus Uberuach HaKodesh, it doesn't mean Mepi Atzmai that he himself came up with it, or he himself was just like reviewing it, but he was saying it with the Ruach HaKodesh. And the Rebbe is going to explain, so what's the difference? If he said it with Ruach HaKodesh, so what's the difference between the first Chumashim and Chumash Devarim? Ruach HaKodesh is Madregis Rabbis. Moshe Rabbeinu Namar, V'leikam Navi Oid B'Yisrael K'Moshe, U'muvan Sheitzel Moshe Rabbeinu Ha'yer Ruach HaKodesh B'tachos Ha'ilui. Since we find that there's different types of Nevi'im, and the Torah itself says that Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevi'us was like no other Navi. So therefore, the Ruach HaKodesh that we're saying that Moshe Rabbeinu had to say the Chumash Devarim was something like exception. Nois of Lakach, Hari Sefer Dvarim Mishnah Torah, Hu Chelik M'Torah Shebeksav, Hari Vadei Shamiris Mishnah Torah, De Moshe Rabbeinu Piatzmai, Ein pirusha shaloi hoysem pi agvura chas v'shalom, that it wasn't from Hashem, that Hashem didn't say it, it was Moshe Rabbeinu chas v'shalom. Shekein Rambam arei poisek shekol ha'omer al teva achs b'toira shel Moshe Omer pi atzmai harei koifer, and it's as if he's koifer b'chol ha'toira kula. Kolshkein, and that's if you say it about one word. Here we're talking about a whole chumash. Kolshkein shloi shayach loimer al sefer shalom b'toira shebeksav Shemosh Amrit Biatzmai. Hecher Chayfei Loimar Shepirish Biatzmai Hu Shemosh Rabbeinu Amar a Sefer Dvarim Beruach HaKodesh Kefi Shalakus Nislabsha B'Moshe V'Nisachado Imoy Ukemaimer Shchina Medaberes M'Tech Groine Shal Moshe. So the whole Sikha is going to go and explain what does this mean. What's the difference when Moshe Rabbeinu just wrote down the words of Hashem in the first 4 Chumashim, versus in Chumash Devarim, the words of Hashem became part of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's how Moshe Rabbeinu spoken. This is going to be the whole approach, the whole sugya of the Sikha is really going to be about explaining this. Where do we see that Shechina medaberes toch groine shel Moshe? Shalchein amar Moshe v'nasati metar artzchem v'nasati esav gomer v'nasati ani. How can Moshe Rabbeinu, Chumash Devarim was all said by Moshe Rabbeinu in first person. Eila dvar mashadiber Moshe. These are the words that Moshe Rabbeinu said. And the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu said these words, what does it mean? He keeps on saying, I did this, I did that, I did. He tells different types of stories that happened the way he experienced it. Not like in the first 4 Chumashim. In the first 4 Chumashim it says, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe. He's just recording like a writer. He's recording what Hashem said to Moshe. In Chumash Devarim, he's speaking in first person. I did this. I told you that. I went to Hashem. I was on Har Sinai for 40 days, and so on. But sometimes he says I when he's talking about Hashem. In V'hoyim Shemaya, in Parshas Ekev, it says V'nosati Eisa B'sodcha. How is he saying V'nosati? Because since the Shechina was Medaberes Tech Groine Shel Moshe, since Hashem's mind and Hashem's thoughts came in and became part of Moshe Rabbeinu's thoughts, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu can say V'nosati Eisa B'sodcha, even though it's talking about Hashem. So, if so, what's the difference between the first 4 Chumashim and the 5th? Ha'hevdel shebei Mishnah Torah l'bein Abbas as form shalafonov zeh rak be'eze oifen is galo idei Moshe Rabbeinu aleinu. In all the 5 Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who told us the Torah. And the only things that we heard directly from Hashem, the first two aseres of the aseres adibros, Anochi Hashem Elokecha she'etzichem eretz Mitzrayim, lo yeh lecha elokim acherim al ponai. These are the two things that we heard directly from Hashem. Everything else, even everything else in aseres adibros, we heard it through Moshe. Aval kol shar tofreish yudalef mitzvos namar Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Torah is begematria what? Tofreish yudalef. That means that Moshe was the one that gave us all the other 611 mitzvahs, because the two mitzvahs of Anochi and Lo Yeh Lecha, we heard it from Hashem. But the first four Chumashim, Mosra Moshe, Raki Shaliach. Berames Mishnah Torah, Moslon Moshe, K'Moshe Hoya, Oimer V'Pi Atzmai, Loi Kishliach, Mishum Shashchina Nislabsha Ba'asagosei V'Nisachda Imai V'Dibra Metagroine Shel Moshe. It's explained in other places, for example, that the difference between the Aseres HaDibros, the way it says in Parshas Yisrael, and in Parshas Veschanan, even though they're the same Aseres HaDibros, but the wording is different. And the Rebbe explains, and other Mefarshim explain, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he said over the Aseres HaDibros in Parshas Veschanan, was explaining and bringing down the Aseres HaDibros. In other words, it was Hashem's ideas, the way it became part of the mind of Moshe Rabbeinu. And this approach was not just Aseres HaDibros in Parshas Veschanan. This approach is in the entire Chumash Devarim. And then the Rebbe goes on and says, it's not only concerning Chumash Devarim, but it's concerning all the Tanoim and Amoraim and all the Chachamim throughout all the generations do the same thing. They take the words of Hashem and they express it in their own language. It says that all the Chachamim of the generation are called Moshe. There's even a case in the Gemara where one Amoira told another Amoira, Moshe shaper ka'amrit. Moshe, you said nice. He called him Moshe because he was doing the same thing like Moshe Rabbeinu. He was teaching and explaining. Shakol Masha Talmid Vasik Asad L'Chadish B'Torah HaKoyel Nitan L'Moshe Misinai. So this Vehem Dvar Havaya Mamish, it's considered Mamish Hashem's words, what the Chachamim of later generations expounded on the Torah. Elam, the only difference is between the way it says it, let's say in the first four Chumashim, and the way the Chachamim throughout all the generations say it. Ela Shadvar Havayim, Hislabish Ba'asagos. So in other words, there's the way it was nislabish in the mind of Moshe and Chumash Devarim. There's the way it was nislabish in the minds of the Nevi'im that were in the Sifrei Nevi'im, and they said Nevuos, Yirmiyahu, Yeshayahu, Yechezkel HaNavi, and so on. And there's the way it was nislabish in the minds of the Tanoim, the Amoraim, the Chachamim. But essentially, at its core, it's all Dvar Hashem. Makah muvan shekashem sheva Mishnah Torah. Lo yirach nitvasvu in yonim chadoshim, elagam nizbaru in yonim rabim asfarim hakoidmim shelulim Mishnah Torah lo yhoyi yin yodim gamas in yonim alolum. What Mishnah Torah does, the Rebbe brings us down in a few places, is it carries down and explains and brings into a more practical, like halacha lamaisa type of way. First of all, it brings halachas that might not have been in the first four Chumashim. As a preparation for the Yidden going to Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu said Chumash Devarim in the last month or so before he was going to pass away, right before they were going to go into Eretz Yisrael. The last 5 weeks, from Rosh Chodesh Shvat till Zayin Adar. So like the last 5 weeks of his life was when he said Chumash Devarim to prepare the Yidden to go into Eretz Yisrael. So a lot of the things in Chumash Devarim, especially the halachas in Chumash Devarim that weren't said in the first four Chumashim, were negayah for when the Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael. In addition to that, there was also other things that he already said in the first 4 Chumashim that he explains more in Chumash Devarim to understand it more practically how to do it. Every generation has the Chachamim of the generation that explain and bring it down how this is practically to be applied. In every generation there's a spashtus of Moshe, there's an extension of Moshe Rabbeinu. It doesn't just mean that I am missing this takana. In the 9 days, we don't eat meat, we don't drink wine. So you could think, if I decide, I will eat meat, I will drink wine, what's so terrible? I won't have the takana. So the Rebbe says, no, it's not just I'm missing the takana. This means I'm lacking in the whole idea of Torah, the way Torah comes down to us, into our minds. In other words, a leader of the generation. Specifically, we mentioned before that Mishnah Torah Nemar L'Doir Shenichnas La'aretz. This is already after all those from the 40 years that were supposed to die because the Chet HaMeraglim already passed away. So it was being said to those Yidden that would now enter Eretz Yisrael. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu wait till then to do a piatzma? If saying the Torah in his own words, in his own mind, was so important, why didn't he do it 40 years before, 38 years before? Why did he wait till the last 5 weeks before his passing? Shekain gile alakus hayitzarach li is derech memutza machab im knisasum l'Eretz Yisrael heicheletz b'nei Yisrael seder avoida shel eretz neisheves hislapshes bedvarim gashmim ubiruram. In other words, when they were in the midbar, they were out of this world. They ate man. They were surrounded by Nana Kovet. They didn't interact with the world. They were separated from the world. All of a sudden, they're going now into Eretz Yisrael. They need to know how to deal with the world, how to have a connection with the world and still be connected to Hashem. Lefichach v'boyam l'Eretz Yisrael loyhoyim mesugalim liklet as oira lekila loyim mutza k'vishay v'dar midbar shekalat as oira loyis lapshish mutza lefish b'midbar hayim ufshatim megashmias. They needed this to go through Moshe Rabbeinu's mind. Beforehand, it was enough that Moshe Rabbeinu was just like a megaphone, like a ramkol, because they were out of this world. So Hashem's words that were out of this world was fine for them. Once they were about to go into Eretz Yisrael to interact with the world, they had to have it the way a human being explains it. They had to talk the Torah in the language, Kiloshim B'nei Adam, in the language that has to do with the world. And for this same reason, you have the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation, because they have to relate the Torah to the generation that we're dealing with. V'chein gam achar kach midor l'dor, tichol shnitzmatu adoris kach bot varavayim belevushim rabim yoser shebekach mizbata hevdol ben Torah shebeksav afilu Mishnah Torah versus Torah Shebal Peh. It's a different style. It's a different way of explaining. And there's the Tanoim. And then there's Amoraim, which is a different, further way of bringing it down. What the Tanoim, for example, took for granted and was self-understood, it came a few years later, the Amoraim had to start explaining again, because the world was lower, so you had to bring it down to a lower level. And then there was Goinim, and then there's Rishonim and Achroinim, because all these things have to be applied now into new situations, into a new world. Shekain Kadesha or Yuchalag Yelador Nachus Yoiser, Hayatzairach Sheyered be Yoiser Lavushim. Allah Shakal Havdelim Einam Ella Benegeya Lalavushim Bahem Islapsha Torah. Shari Bemahus Enkol Havdel, Kol Chelka Torah, Midal Das Forum Arashoinim, Ad Lechidushi Torah Shal Achran, Sheniskabel Betwutz Yisrael. It's not everybody's Chidushi Torah becomes binding. It's just when it's niskabel b'tfus Yisrael. If Torah observant Yidden accepted this as halacha, so then this becomes the Dvar Havaya. In other words, Chassidus also gives an example. You can have the king the way he's dressed in one garment and one levush, and you can have the king in many garments and many levushim. And if it's cold outside, he's got to put on a lot of garments. But the king is still in there. The same thing when we're dealing with the darkness of Golus, when we're dealing with the world being the way it is. Now you need to relate the Torah to the world the way it is. So on the one hand, it's Hashem, it's the king. On the other hand, he's enclothed in many garments. And these are done through the Talmidei Chachamim of every generation, that they bring down the Torah according to the level of that generation. כבר דובר פעם שבעבודה לאחר הכניסה לארץ ישראל יש ישרן לגבי העבודה במדבר שכן דווקא על ידי העבודה בדברים גשמיים לוקחים עצמוס. That's how we connect with Hashem's essence. שהרי נסהבה הקדוש ברוך הוא ליאס לא ידיר בתחתונים דווקא בתחתונים הסלבשס בגשמיס אויסים דיר לא יסברך לעצמוסי. Hashem wanted to live in here, in our world. He didn't want to be in the higher worlds, in Shemayim, and Gan Eden, Atzilus, and Bria. He didn't want those things. He wanted down here. There was lechem in Hashemayim, Mayim ben Bereshem Miriam. Everything was miraculous. Everything was out of this world. Beram be'Eretz Yisrael heichel seder levushya shel luvusha teva. Amnam uberacha avay lakecha. It's the bracha, even on Eretz Yisrael, is coming from Hashem. Aval bracha melubeshes b'asher tasa asiya b'darchei hateva. Aval b'asher lemuhus hashpoa lekis. Hari loy rak sheberetz Yisrael loy nechser memenu me'umma kim adra b'toiva oretz ma'oid ma'oid. Dafke beretz Yisrael loychem as ha'ma'oid ma'oid beligvol ha'amiti. Chassidus explains that the level of ma'oid means beligvol, ma'oid ma'oid means even higher than beligvol, that Hashem's very great being is taken dafke in this world. So the point is that, again, we're dealing with levushim, we're dealing with garments, we're dealing with teva, we're dealing with interacting with the world, and dafke interacting in the world, we have a dira lo yizbarach, we have a home for Hashem's essence. So just like it's when we are doing this in Eretz Yisrael, it's that way. The same thing. It's in the part of Torah that they learned and prepared for to go into Eretz Yisrael. Moving gamen gele Torah, shloi zebel v'adshur mishna Torah. Loi nechser klum b'muhus l'gabra bas form shalifnei zem el adra bechelik zeh shebetoira matzui ratzi elyon begali yoser, because it's more practical. Where the Torah is, for example, it's brought down that in Torah Shabbat Peh, Hashem's will is more revealed than the Torah Shabbat. Why? You read in Torah Shabbat, V'hoyle Tafis Beinanecha, you don't know what the Tafis Beinanecha is. You look in Torah Shabbat Peh, it tells you, oh, tefillin is like this. That's what the Tafis is. So where is Hashem's will more revealed? In Torah Shabbat Peh. In a similar vein, Dvarim, like we said, explains more of the mitzvahs and the practicality than the first four Chumashim. So there's more of Hashem's Ratzon revealed in Chumash Devarim, even though that went through Moshe Rabbeinu's mouth. That was Shechina Medaber Techgroinu Shel Moshe instead of the first four Chumashim, where it was Hashem himself talking. B'kiyam Ha'yiras from Mishnah Torah. Keitzad Lisnag B'Eretz Yisrael Loichim Es Ratzna Elyin B'Gali. Al derech zeh gam benegel chidush Torah v'takonos shel Rabbeinu shebechol dor v'dor shekechol sha'ador noch rochek v'nochus yoser kach gam nayle yoser ha'oira l'ki shebechidushim v'takonos shel oisei dor shekein davka idei shemekayimim ha'yiras v'takonos elum nizke l'chol ha'yiudim ad l'gilu shev'lo yikonefayid merecha v'bi'is ha'Mashiach. V'davar ze muvan gam Makah sheb'mishna Torah muvorim gam asfar ma'koidmim mizgalim b'hem ba'ofen shegam anu nuchal la'asigam kanal. Like we said before, Mishnah Torah explains things that weren't totally clear in the first four Chumashim. So the Rebbe brings a rule: hakoyach lahoyred lamata b'yoser noiveya mimakim naila b'yoser. who's considered that it really mastered a subject well? How do you know if someone really knows a topic well? If you could even explain it to someone that has no understanding of it, that has no knowledge of it. If he's limited and says, I can't explain it to you, then it's missing something in your total grasp of the idea. The more you can bring the idea down, the greater you understand it. So the same thing, Chumash Devarim, and the same thing, all the takanas and all the chidushim that came in all the other generations, is the power of Hashem that's so powerful that can bring things down even lower. It says, Ad hayama achrei. It describes over there till the borders, till the final sea. V'amar Razal, don't read it ad hayama achrei. Insert above, read it ad hayoyma achrei, meaning until Mashiach comes. Mishnah Torah hu ka'amar dvaravaya kfi shu melubish pi atzmei shel Moshe v'yispashtusa delay b'shu b'chol dara u'b'talmidei chama nikroim b'shem Moshe, like we said before, that talmidei chama of every generation is called Moshe. U'b'siyum Moshe Mishnah Torah, we speak about Mashiach. Koloimer, aidei ha'eros ha'achroinim shel hachamim shebedolos ha'achroinim masigim es ha'giluyim sheyiyu b'yoyim ha'achron giluy del asid. And here we see again the way the Rebbe turns everything on its head. You know, we just say, well, Mashiach finally has to come, even though the generation is so low and so far, Mashiach is finally going to come. Says the Rebbe, no. Dafke, because the generation is so low, and we're able to bring Torah down into the low state of this generation, which is done through the Moshe Rabbeinu of every single generation. So that is the reason, and that brings to the Giluyim of Mashiach. Dalet. Now he gets into the idea of Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, like we mentioned before. Tchilas Mishnah Torah, in other words, Chumash Devarim, Parshas Devarim, Nikras la'olam b'Shabbos shalifnei Tisha B'Av. Or sometimes, some years when Shabbos comes out on Tisha B'Av, that's when they read it. Oy b'Tisha B'Av atzmik yishachal b'Shabbos. Al pi anal tuvan ha'shayches b'Mishnah Torah v'yimei bein ha'mitzarim. Hatzamach tzedek mevayer sha'Shabbosis shebein ha'mitzarim heim inyan shel makdim refuah. Tisha B'Av is a terrible time. It was a Makah for Klal Yisrael. Shabbos that we have in the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, those are the Shabbosim that are, it says Hashem is Makdim Refuah Makah. It's a healing before we get even hit. Kasher Refuah, Ba'la'achra Makah, Re'adayin Yesh Zman Sha'Makah Mitzuya. El Shachar Kach Ba Refuah V'ripa Oysa. Gam La'achra Refuah Noisa Roishim HaMachla V'Adam Nikra Choylish Nesrapi, the Gemara says. Avol kishem magdim refuah l'makah reba mitis ha'inyan ma'olam la'hoisa makah. Even though to us it looks like there is still a makah, but in truth, in the real aspect of it, it wasn't. Refuah kaidames lifnei b'mayla nailis ve'ein is in a smakim l'makah. V'zeu ha'pirush ha'shabbos shebein ha'mitzarim hem refuah shekoidem l'makah. Hashabbosis heim nailim beyoyser ve'in noisnim mokim le'inin shal bein ha'mitzarim. That's what it means. Makdim. Makdim does not just mean time on the calendar. It's coming so many days before the Makah. Makdim also means in level. It's higher than Tisha B'Av. Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, or the Shabboses in the 3 weeks, are higher than Tisha B'Av. V'adavar gam move on. How come Shabbos is higher? How is there possible to be any type of chait? It all came about because Adam Rishon did the sin of the Eitz Das. If Adam Rishon would not have done the chait Eitz Das, sin would not have been possible in this world. Hachait hepech shel nei mitzvah v'toyra oir hevi choyshach v'layla la'olam. Umikol makim lamed vav shoyz shimsha oisa oira b'Shabbos Bereishis lo'yhaya choyshach haya oir shloishim v'sheish shoyz mi yom shishu b'boiker ad l'motzoi Shabbos. This was after the Chet Eitzadas. The Chet Eitzadas took place on Friday. And from Friday morning till after Shabbos, it was light even Friday night. Why is that so? Shekein b'Shabbos ein roisha machet u'machoyshach hanevea mimen. וכשם שחטא עץ הדס שורש כל החטאים לא יפגע בשבס, כך גם אין פוגמים בכל שאר החטאים שמקורם מחטא עץ הדס. So since Averis cannot affect Shabbos, just like Chet Eitz Hadas didn't affect and bring darkness to Shabbos, so too any Avera can't bring darkness to Shabbos. So what's the result of Averis? The result of Averis was the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Can affect Shabbos. And we see this lahalacha that doesn't affect Shabbos. Lachein adinu shebeshabbosim shebebein hamitzarim gam b'Shabbos shebetishas hayamim va'afilu b'Shabbos shecholius b'Tisha b'av asur linag avelu shebein hamitzarim adrab mitzvah lisanig v'lismoyach in the Shabbos of the 3 weeks, in the Shabbos even before Tisha b'av, even on Shabbos that comes out on Tisha b'av. Mishum shalagabe b'chinas haShabbos ein menagdim halamas v'esteirim yiseirim mizu. Hashabbosim shebebein hamitzarim harei inyanam kedivrei Tzemach Tzedek refuah koydem lemakah. Inyanam lerape is makas achurban. Ein ze rak stam inyan shel Shabbos. Shalagabe dargasa loikayim achurban. But it's a medicine. It's a healing. It's not just, okay, Shabbos, churban doesn't exist. Shabbos is the antithesis of churban. Shabbos is supposed to undo and change the churban to a time of not churban. Shabbosim boim v'nimshachim el bein hamitzarim kedei la'asas mehem nachla b'li mitzarim. Instead of being bein hamitzarim, Shabbos brings in what it says about Shabbos, that it's a nachla without confines, just the opposite of bein hamitzarim. Koloymar sheshabbosis elu, the Shabbosis of the 3 weeks, nailim mishabbosis kol hashana. Kol Shabbosis hashana im lamayla mishtal shlos v'lachein ein poigim b'em kol chet bein lem shaychs legolos. Fine. There's no connection of Shabbos and Golos. That's why we say Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbos has to do to the Yom Shabbos and Menucha l'chayei elamim. But the Shabbos of the 3 weeks, every Shabbos of the 3 weeks, v'ilu Shabbosis elu hem gam refuah. Hem merapim umahapchim es bein hamitzarim as hagolus atzma. Hem megalim es pnimis ha'inyan shebegolus atzma kifi she'achana legeula hem me'ein shel yom shekuli Shabbos. What's going to be when Mashiach comes? Shala'asid yoimru oitcha Hashem ki anaftabi. I will thank Hashem that He was angry at me, that He sent me into Golus. Shetizgala pnimius hamayla shel anafta shel hagolus. That's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. And on Shabbos, which is Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, having to do with the Yom Shekuli Shabbos and Menucha of Mashiach's times, it's already a Me'ein de La'asid Lavi. It's already the anti-part of the 3 weeks. V'gam inyan zeh merumas benigla ad shadavrim is bata ba'alocha. B'shabbosis shebebein hamitzarim tzrichim lizoyer mishchash avelus yoyser mishar Shabbos hashana. Even if a person normally does something the rest of the year that might seem like avelus, during the 3 weeks he has to be very careful about it. So the Rebbe tells a story. He tells us a lot of times that his father, the Rebbe's father, Rebbe Leivik, was a Rav in the city of Yekatranislav in the Ukraine. And Echad Shayanoyeg Lino B'Shabbos Nalibad, he always used to wear Nalibad, material shoes, for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason was. Maybe it was more comfortable. That's what he used to wear. Iru Abel Chas Rasman Litzlan. He was Navelus. V'shol Eitzel Amur, he asked my father, the Rebbe is saying about his own father, Im mutter loylina loisim b'Shabbos b'shavua avelus. Because since a whole week, because he's sitting shiva, he's supposed to wear not leather shoes, and now it's Shabbos, and he ordinarily always wears on Shabbos not leather shoes, so he's worried, is he allowed to or he's not allowed to? Amur pasak loy, my father ruled, shelo yasakein, even though he did this every Shabbos he wore these shoes. So we see how much more on the Shabbos of the 3 weeks one has to be happy. Because Davke Meshabes. Hamagalas Pnimius Hagolas Koirim Asefer Dvarim Shinyoni Bechetzonius Divrei Musar Al Yerida. It begins matters that Moshe Rabbeinu was like rebuking the Yidden and telling them they did this wrong, they did that wrong. Avol Davka Idezeh Boim La'ad HaYom HaAchron, which Chazal say Ad HaYom HaAchron, the final day of the Golus Begula Asidam Aidei Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'Karav Mamish. The Rebbe in the footnote says an interesting thing, two things. He says the Shabbosim before in the 3 weeks, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av is the most powerful because since it's coming right before the lowest Yerida of the 3 weeks. And another thing the Rebbe says is that it says that Moshe Rabbeinu in the beginning of our parsha, it says these are the words that he said Achrei hakoisoy asichon, after he defeated Sichon. So Rashi explains, the Chazal explains, why does it say after he defeated Sichon? So he said first he did kindness for them, then he rebuked them, then he gave them Musar. So he said this is the way Hashem should act with us. Even if there's a need for some type of rebuke, it should all be after a lot of kindness and harchava, begashis, beruchnis, and the main thing that Mashiach should come already right away.